I think as a mother and a wife, I feel supported to do this, but I don't want it to consume everything about me because my drive works for me and against me. It's this unrelenting voice, and there's probably an opportunity for maturity there.
This is The Growth Moment with your coach, Amy Kay. Inspiration, ideas, and incredible insights for you to be more and do more. Get ready to grow today. Have you ever really wanted to get to that next level? To tap into all of who you can be, your peak performance, but holding back because you're afraid you don't have what it takes, that you can't sustain the high level of performance needed, especially when you have many balls to juggle across your life. I'm not just talking career. It could be the next level relationship, financial success, dedicating yourself to your craft or passion, the top level in your sport, a graduate degree. As the saying goes, sometimes what got you here to your current level isn't what's needed for the next. It's about finding a new way to leverage your strengths and bring out your best while creating the balance needed for your sustainability. This is what I get to coach on with Margaret. Margaret is one of those she does it all superwomen, an incredibly passionate, ambitious, driven sales executive, speaker and podcaster, mother of three, and mentor to so many people. She just left her conventional corporate track to lean into building her dream of empowering women in business, all centered around her amazing podcast, Rising Tide. Not surprisingly, Margaret is hitting a wall, wanting to create something of significance and impact in the world, but unsure if she really can do it all. Our coaching centers on figuring out a new way, a new paradigm for success that is sustainable. I want to help you get to your next level in a way that fits into your life, not somebody else's life. Where do you want to level up? Where do you know you need to grow, expand, move into what you're truly capable of, but are afraid you can't pull it off? Think about where you want some peak performance. Choose a specific area to ponder as you listen to the episode. Is there a dream that you want to go for if you could just figure out how best to tap into your full potential? And to make this easier, remember to use the show notes on thegrowthmoment.com to give you extra insights and tools for this challenge. As you listen, be self-centered. Don't worry about how Margaret's situation is similar or different from yours. Keep focusing on what does resonate for you, where you have that aha, the opening that enables you to see a new solution. Okay, let's dive in with Margaret as she starts to explore her quest for sustainable peak performance. And I ask her, what is your dream now?
Feels more like a nightmare than a dream right now.
How so?
There has been no shortage of curveballs. Because of my experience, there's awareness of what good looks like, what quality looks like, but also being at peace, trying to be at peace with the reality of what I am capable of doing myself or just what's realistic to expect given what needs to be done with the resources that I have. So there's that tension of what I know can be done and what great looks like, which is what I want, but what is also then realistic. The fatigue is still very real. It's just driven by something different now. It's less emotional fatigue, but it's still like going at a far more intense pace than before. And I think it's the expectations of, because you're trying to do something you're really passionate about and believe in, the kind of false expectation that that would somehow make it feel good, and it doesn't. And so that's disorienting. So it's all those things.
So it's almost like if we're looking at Margaret's overall full potential, but more importantly, fulfillment, happy, happy warrior, enjoying her life, enjoying her work, because is that what you're going for? It's not just enough to do something cool in the world and put that out there, but you want to feel at peace doing it. How would you describe any of that?
So it's funny you asked that question. What came to mind is I think there's a problem with the ambition of, or just my ambition level, period. I don't know if being peaceful coincides with that at all. Like, they seem like they might compete with one another because my drive that works for me and against me, but I always want more. It can always be better. It's this unrelenting voice, and there's probably an opportunity for maturity there, but it's hard to answer the question because, like, what the impact I wanted to have, I don't see it being like a lifestyle decision.
It feels like the territory we're playing in is how can you continue to harness and channel the formidable ambition and drive that you have, and you have a high bar for yourself, clearly. So harnessing that, because you don't want to lose that. But what is the more mature Margaret ambition drive? And I think we're just feeling around here. I don't even have a vision of what that would look like. What can you imagine that's not, oh, Margaret's so laid back and peaceful and easygoing? But what is the mature, newest version of Margaret possibly look like with this?
Yeah, well, I think one of them is doing something that I've historically not been good at doing, which is viewing things as learning, not failure, and trying to see this as a learning. And the more it feels like I'm falling down, it's just accelerated growth. So that's probably one piece. Will you ask the question again? My brain kind of blue screened.
Yeah, I know, because it's almost short circuits on it only can be this way. What are you all even talking about? All right. So and I'm wanting to bring you back to, and this might not work at all, but your competitive swimming days. Like the smooth stroke, it is your full power and full ambition, but you're able to just roll with it and drive without it feeling upsetting.
Mm. So I think that analogy totally works, but the difference is this is the equivalent of changing your stroke.
Ah, okay. I knew there was something there. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna like be all over this. So, Margaret, how is it that moving from corporate life, where you are driving a team and driving sales, and it might be very difficult, but you do know what you're doing, and now moving into creating Rising Tide, this game changer for women in the world to help lift them up in their careers, in their lives. How is that like changing your stroke? So, this whole next level thing is tricky, especially when you're trying to do things the old way, going after a bigger dream, taking on a new challenge, and realizing that your past methods just aren't going to cut it. As you enter each new age and stage in your life, you often have to shift how you achieve, succeed, and grow. It's that more mature vision that Margaret mentioned, the next level way of being at the next level. But it can be challenging to even imagine doing things in a different way when you've done it one way most of your life. The brain short circuiting moment that Margaret had. Bottom line, you might have to start building some new neural pathways, methods, and habits to get what you want. So, where are you ready for a breakthrough or a shift? As you think about your next level, are you hitting a plateau right now? maybe in default mode, counting on your past performance to carry you forward. Where is it getting too hard or painful to do things in the old way? I want you to think now, not just what the next level might be in your job, life, relationships, but how you need to be at the next level. What does your sustained peak performance require now? What current ways of doing things just don't work? Go ahead, make those mental notes or jot down your insights. For Margaret, the new way started with a perspective shift. She said, I need to view things as learning, not failure. The more it feels like I'm falling down, I need to think that it's just accelerated growth. And using the competitive swimming analogy and this whole idea of changing her stroke, that's what really cracked things open. Sometimes using a metaphor or analogy that clicks can cut through all the crap, noise, limitations, and create a transformative moment. What will start your transformation? Meanwhile, let's join in again as Margaret explores what changing her stroke really means.
The only reason you would change your stroke, especially if you're already at a high level, is pain. So your current technique is causing injury, and you won't be able to continue at the pace or the level if you continue doing what you're doing. Or if you're running towards something, there's an opportunity to have a breakthrough. A lot of times if you're going to change your stroke, it's because you're flat. You're stuck at a plateau, and there's a opportunity to improve your technique, which makes you more efficient in the water. So translating that to rising tide, I think for me, there was a lot of pain in my old technique. It's probably both. Like there was pain, but there was also, I think getting to be my fullest version and kind of, hit my, pinnacle best times, using swimming terms is probably right. Like that's kind of the other reason to change the technique is I think it's both trying to prevent the pain.
This is both. There is pain in the old way. That just does clearly doesn't work for you anymore. And you're wanting to hit a whole new level of peak performance.
Yes. Be on a right. It's literally a bigger stage. So in swimming, it would be qualifying, for a higher a higher level of competition. And in this case, it's I think expanding. Like I haven't tapped into all of what I think I can do.
And so I'm not going to burden you with low expectations to say, Margaret, you should just lower your bar, lower your expectations. Don't try to be so much. Because it's kind of like, well, screw that. That's not who I'm coaching today. I'm not coaching someone who wants to lean back.
Right. I could try it. I don't think it would work very well.
It's not how you're wired. It's not what you're here to do on the planet. So Margaret, okay, one question. What are you here to do on the planet?
This is a great example of the internal squirm that is happening. I think everyone wants to be remembered for or have a legacy. Um, my legacy, I want it to like cause a fundamental shift. So it's not just people in my community or my family will remember me or people that I've worked with, but that it's kind of even at a global level. There's being part of a shift that happens.
So stay right there because you're speaking very clearly. There's just truth. There's not a lot of hemming and hawing there. There is, I want to be part of making a fundamental shift on the planet. Take a breath with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, your new stage, this new level, this is a global level you're competing at, if you will, or swimming at.
Mm-hmm.
So, is what you're wanting to do with Rising Tide, is it like your Olympic level performance?
For sure.
Is that what you want? I want Olympic level Margaret for Rising Tide.
Mm-hmm.
What's that like to claim that? What's happening in your body and your brain?
I know how much goes into that and the sacrifice. And, I think as a mother and a wife, there's the worry of wanting to be, I feel supported to do this, but I don't want it to consume everything about me. I still want to decide how I show up and where I show up, and finding a way that this can work on my terms without feeling like it just consumes every hour of every day and every thought.
Excellent clarity. I want to play at an Olympic global level, and I want to do it in a way on my terms. And that's the beauty of it, is you're not joining some other organization where you might not be able to dictate your terms. You're creating your own. You're creating the Olympics. I don't know if that hits at all. Margaret, you're creating.
I think it does. The hard part is, this analogy is it's always so helpful, because the other side of it is, it's mental, and there's a lot of opportunity to get in your own head. And, part of, at least with swimming and training, is like most of your season is breaking down muscle and slightly repairing, and breaking down and slightly repairing. And you only really get to peak a couple times a year. And so it's a slugfest, basically. And I'm not saying that this,
Has to be that way, but yeah.
but it's kind of managing the mental side of the fatigue. The thing that oftentimes throws me off kilter is the why. I don't throw it out, but it's, one, nobody, right? It's like nobody would know if I just stop, and nobody's going to stop me if I just stop. That's a big difference between this and working for a company. The taking the time, I think taking the time or investing the time, or what you do with your time. It's interesting when it's yours that you're building. It's completely different than when you're working for somebody else, where there's the expectations kind of laid out of what you need to do to get the job done, where this is nobody's setting that for you except yourself. And healthy boundaries can be very dangerous or difficult for somebody like me who has a bias for action,
Because, yeah, where does it stop? How do you decide?
right? So again, swimming terms, right? Like there's overtraining,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
where there's diminishing return. And because this feels like uncharted waters, I don't know that I know where overtraining. Like I could probably feel it if I pay attention, but then I'm so accustomed to just saying, "Well, suck it up.
Yeah.
You're fine. You have to keep going. Like you can't afford to stop, because you'll get passed by."
So it feels like some of your old competitive swimming wiring is helpful, and some of it is needs to be eradicated because it's so not
Right.
helpful. Just the idea, even that, okay, break down the muscle, slightly repair in order to get peak performance a few times a year. We don't want like 3 bursts of peak performance for rising tide.
Right. No, we want regular.
Like it we want sustained performance, right? So it almost feels like you need a new metaphor analogy, you need a new paradigm within which, so that you don't fall into default patterns of go, go, go. And if you don't go hard, somebody else is going to take your place and your spot. And, again, and it's all time dependent, and it's very stressful. So stressful. I'm so struck by Margaret's pain in doing things the old way. What worked in the past and brought her success is not suited at all to her current age and stage. She still has the driving ambition, but that earlier wiring is actually hindering her success today. Margaret's old way of achieving meant being single-minded, a more ruthless focus, completely consuming everything about her. Now she is contemplating doing it on new terms, her terms. You get to decide which pieces of yourself and your wiring are helpful and which are not. Ask yourself, is it time for a new paradigm? Are you ready to set your own expectations, boundaries, perspective, and pace? This is relevant not only if you're starting your own business like Margaret. This is true when you're in school, working for someone else, in your relationships, managing your finances right across your life. Take a look at your paradigm, the way you have been doing things, what still works for you, and most importantly, what does not. We keep coming back to this. I want you to add and layer on each insight of how you want to move forward. Now, we jump back in with Margaret as she defines her new paradigm.
It's such a good call out because it's the infinite versus finite strategy. So sports finite strategy works really great because there's an event that is going to happen. There's an end to the event. Like you'll know where you stand. There's all the rules, where like what I'm attempting is infinite in nature. And so there is just a continuum. There is no end. People can come and go. The circumstances can change. So it's not quite so black and white.
So, what paradigm, what structure, what I don't even know what to call it, do you want for Rising Tide and also your part of Rising Tide and how you want to swim, how you want to be in this? I am so open to Margaret. How do you want to design this life and this new baby that you're creating?
I'm so used to so it's a great thing and it's a bad thing in that I'm very open to ideas and I can be very fluid in nature. The downside of that is that I won't always trust my instincts. And in this case, because it feels like I don't have any idea what I'm doing, I really don't want to trust my instincts because it doesn't totally make sense to me. How could I have good instincts if I haven't done something like this before? So I think there's some element of balancing listening and trusting myself with also wanting to make sure that I'm not just tunneling in there and blindly doing something that actually is detrimental. So there's also probably a need for some balance of a support group, mentors. I have people who come to mind. Worrying about whether or not they're the right fit right now doesn't matter. I think if they come to mind, then deciding with them, not for them,
There you go.
progress. If that's something that that makes sense and is an area where they feel their time is well spent and their expertise is well served. Either, yeah. So, because I don't know. I mean, I have people that come to mind, but I couldn't tell you that they would be perfect for this phase of the business because I don't know.
Right. And so then that makes me picture you, as you said, not deciding for them, but with them, a conversation, maybe with a couple of women in the room. So Margaret needs a little bit of finite on her infinite and, something to bounce up against so that the plan isn't just all in her head, that there's almost an external space where it can be, oh, here's the strategy, here's the plan, here are these people who are nodding their head saying, yep, that's the one. And everyone could be talking about, oh, how would we do this? This is a new territory too. How could it work for everybody? So I'm pushing you out of definitely the comfort zone into the growth zone of again and again, what do you want? What kind of help do you want? What kind of pieces, structure do you want? How could you get that? More playful, more exploratory, more brainstormy?
Right. Like, yeah, like
What's coming up?
getting back to doing the hard things the way that I enjoy doing hard things. Like, I don't think the issue is working hard for something, but it's not fun for me, when I feel alone or I don't have support, and that's not that people aren't supportive, but it's more so that I'm putting conditions on it.
You don't like to do it by yourself. And the whole idea with Rising Tide was never that you would want to go do this all by yourself.
Right. The irony is I'm building the thing that I wish already existed for this.
Yeah. And so maybe you're supposed to be building it with a team, and that we're open to how that team starts to come together. So now I'm going to pull it back to the whole stroke, changing your stroke. So, however you've been doing it, if you are to have a new stroke that makes this less painful, not prone to injury, and efficient, effective, cutting through the water smoothly, beautifully, what does that new stroke look like in the context of everything we're talking about?
Well, I think it's not necessarily what the stroke looks like, but it will require patience on my part because a lot of times you get slower at first because you're having to think so intentionally about what you're doing.
hmm And I love that piece. The patience, huge, huge. And that it's not enough to just go do all this stuff, build all this stuff. It matters maybe just as much how you're doing it. Intentional, as you said.
Not going alone and letting others go with me is probably one of the biggest parts of this, of the new stroke. Um, even just today, I actually think the new stroke is in some ways forming because I forgot what I was doing mid movement. I had my phone in my hand, but I could not for the life remember why I had just pulled it out. And that happened 3 times. And normally I would just plow through. And instead it was like, I think I'm over tapped. I think I've gone past, and trying to pull back on the day to just say, today is not the day to fight any big fights. You can knock out small things, but you are not going to attempt to do anything that requires your brain power.
Ah,
So I think that's a big part of it is like just,
that's a big shift.
yeah. So trying to be really in tune to like just even my physical reaction of what's happening. That's really important. And I think just being kind to myself is really big. So I think that's a big part of the new stroke.
Wow.
And then I think the last piece is like, I really don't get to diminish what I am setting out to do. I think I might actually be my biggest it's almost as though I've become the biggest critic to protect against the biggest critic. And I don't so I think that's the other part of this is that freedom to say I don't know where this will go, but I know what I want it to do. And I trust if I have my teams supporting me, I'm in tune with myself, and I have a clear enough vision that I keep in front of me that the answers will be clear when it's time.
Margaret had some profound insights about her new stroke and how this big dream absolutely calls for sustained performance, not a few bursts of gutting it out peak performance. It's not a finite goal, one and done. Margaret's next level is all about patience, doing hard things with more ease, teaming up, getting help, being kind to herself, and not diminishing what she's setting out to do. And I love the realization about how it might not feel natural at first, that the shift will take time. Margaret and I went on to set some specific next steps to change her stroke, how to be her own best boss, reaching out to create a board of advisors, more collaboration, less solo, and freeing herself for more of the joy in what she is building. I'm pushing you out of your comfort zone today. I want you in your growth zone. So let's pull it all together. Picture your next level and start to list the elements concretely, explicitly of your new stroke, your new paradigm. What has to go? What ways of doing and being no longer fit in your full and multi-layered life? Describe how you want it to be. What will create that peak performance in a deeply fulfilling, sustainable way? And know that it's not about doing more, pressure to always achieve, to be enough. I want you to hit your next level so you can be more of you, bringing what you uniquely have to offer to the world. Take some time now to set self-accountability and concrete actions for your very next steps to find your new stroke. You can find Margaret's amazing podcast, Rising Tide, on iTunes or Spotify. It showcases remarkable women and their stories. To figure out your new paradigm, go to thegrowthmoment.com to get more insights, tools, and steps in the show notes. Please reach out if you're ready to coach with me on your own growth moment. And always follow me on your favorite podcast app. Now get out there and grow today.